My brother destroyed the book that took me years to write, and my parents, they applauded. Throughout my life, I lived in his shadow, the genius of the family, the pride of my parents. But what nobody knew is that the words that made him famous were always mine. They laughed when I said I was going to fight. They called it drama. But in court, the evidence silenced everyone. He stole my words for years, but in that room, he couldn't steal the truth.
The applause echoed through the event hall like a deafening tide, each clap marking yet another invisible wound in Helena. On stage, Eduardo smiled, raising the golden trophy that reflected the spotlight and the vanity of someone who believed himself untouchable. The audience rose in euphoria, proud of the literary genius who enchanted the country. Helena, among the guests, felt her stomach churn as her brother thanked the family that always believed in her talent. Those words, stolen from her, seemed to silently mock her own anonymity. From childhood, Helena had written in hidden notebooks, scribbling worlds that no one read. Eduardo, curious and competitive, always asked to see, praising and then repeating the ideas as if they were his own. His parents, delighted, applauded their son who had a way with words. Helena learned early on that her talent was invisible and his glorified. That night was just another replay of an old pain, staged under expensive lights and false applause. When the event ended, the guests gathered around, and Helena watched her brother hug their mother, who was crying with pride. "You were born for this, my son," she said, smiling with teary eyes. Their father took photos, posing as if his son's success was a genetic predisposition. Helena, holding a glass of champagne, tried to smile. But inside, something was beginning to change, a silent spark of indignation, something she had always kept quiet until then. That same night, alone in her apartment, she turned on her computer and opened a file called Draft 18. The cursor blinked in the corner of the screen, as if taunting her. "Will you continue to remain silent?" She began typing furiously, the words flowing like a confession. She was no longer just writing stories. She was writing about survival. The sound of the keyboard echoed like a muffled cry from someone who had finally decided to exist. The night wore on, and Helena wrote until sunrise. Each line was a reminder of what truly belonged to her. While the world slept, believing the talent had a male face, she created under another name, Elise D.A., a name that no one associated with the quiet daughter, the withdrawn sister, the woman ignored by her own family, a name that would soon conquer the world. Have you ever felt invisible within your own family, watching someone take credit for something that was yours? Then subscribe to the channel now, because this story will move you, and each new video here brings truths that many people experience, but few have the courage to tell. The phone rang at noon. It was her mother, excited, wanting to comment on Eduardo's interview that had appeared in the newspaper. "Did you see it, my daughter? What a gift he has! You should take inspiration from him," she said in that sweet, blind tone that Helena knew so well. "I saw it, Mom," she replied simply, swallowing the bitterness of the words she could never say. If she told the truth, she would be labeled envious, and worse, no one would believe her.
While her mother talked about awards, Helena stared at the stacks of old notebooks stored in the closet. The yellowed pages contained fragments of herself,
stories she had once confided to her brother and which were now recognized as part of his masterpiece. Each lost word was like a stolen memory from childhood. The past, which had once hurt in silence, now began to whisper, demanding reparation. She remembered the day it all began. She was 13 when Eduardo handed in an essay at school and won a writing contest. The theme was, "What is courage?" Ironically, the courage was hers, and the prize was his. His parents threw a party, hung the diploma on the wall, and said that that boy would go far. Helena, silent, learned to be in the shadow. But deep down, she vowed that one day she would write something that no one could steal. Now, as an adult, the vow pulsed again. As she revised the manuscript of her new novel, Helena felt her heart race. The book was finished, intense and true, and it would be published under a pseudonym. Elise D. Without anyone ever imagining it was her. For the first time, her voice would be heard, even if hidden behind another name. When Helena sent the manuscript to the publisher, she felt butterflies in her stomach and a freedom she hadn't experienced in years. There were no applause, no spotlights, just the sound of the email notification. But in that simple moment, click, she had rewritten her own destiny and, unknowingly, lit the fuse that would soon set the entire Duarte family ablaze. Time passed in silence, until, months later, the name Elise D. began circulating in literary circles. Critics praised the emotional depth and powerful female writing. Helena read the reviews anonymously, with a shy smile and a racing heart. For the first time, her words were being celebrated, not for her face, but for her soul. While the world tried to guess who the mysterious author was, she felt that, finally, she existed. The messages from the publisher multiplied. "Your book will be nominated for an important award," the email said. Helena could hardly believe it. She had spent her life hidden in her brother's shadow, and now her talent was blossoming before everyone, even if under another name. But along with the joy came fear. What if someone found out? The secret was her refuge, but also her prison. When the news came out in the newspapers, "Unknown author wins National Literature Prize," fate began to move. Eduardo, vain and always attentive to the market, commented disdainfully during a family dinner, "This Elise D. is just another feminist fad, nothing special." Helena merely smiled, controlling the trembling of her hands. Hearing her brother belittle what was hers was almost poetic and ironic. Deep down, however, she knew the mask could slip at any moment. The coincidences were numerous, the style unmistakable. Eduardo wasn't stupid, just blinded by vanity, and that blindness would be his downfall. On the night of the official award announcement, Helena watched the ceremony on television. The presenter called out the name of Elise D., and she wept silently, holding the symbolic trophy that existed only in her mind. For the first time, her applause was solely hers. Little did she know that that same applause would echo days later, like the sound of the war that was about to begin.
Eduardo discovered the truth by chance. An email left open, a conversation with the editor intercepted, and his world collapsed. The success he believed was rightfully his now had another name, that of the sister he had always despised. Envy turned to rage, and rage to destruction. One rainy night, he showed up at Helena's apartment, drunk, his eyes blazing. "So that's it?" he shouted, pushing the door open. "You thought you could fool me? That you could use my talent to shine?" Helena tried to explain, but his words cut through the air like blades. You never wrote anything real. You're just a shadow trying to steal my light." Before she could react, he grabbed her laptop and threw it against the wall. The sound of the impact echoed like a gunshot. Helena stood motionless, staring at the pieces of the computer scattered on the floor, along with the final chapters of the novel she hadn't yet sent. The pain came later, when he left, leaving behind the smell of alcohol and guilt. She fell to her knees, trying to gather the fragments, but all that remained was ruin. Hours later, the police arrived, called by a neighbor who had heard the fight. Helena didn't want to file the complaint. She still believed she could resolve everything quietly, as she always had. She called her parents, hoping for support, but heard only laughter and reprimands. "Your brother is impulsive, my daughter. Don't make a scene. He loves you. He's just confused." That sentence was the end of her innocence. Helena realized with brutal clarity that no one would defend her. In that instant, the writer who had lived in hiding died, and the woman willing to fight was born. Her brother's trophy still shone on the shelf in her parents' house, but inside it, a new kind of flame burned, and this time, it would be impossible to extinguish it.
The room was full of voices, but none of them conveyed empathy. Helena spoke trembling, trying to explain what her brother had done, but her parents exchanged bored glances. "Helena, you've always been so dramatic," said her mother with a condescending smile. Her father, leafing through the newspaper, simply added, "Your brother has an artistic temperament, you know, and you always take everything so personally." The words fell like stones. Eduardo, on the other side of the table, feigned remorse. "I was drunk, Mom. I don't even remember properly. I just wanted to talk." Helena looked at him and saw the same arrogant glint as always. No one perceived the venom behind his gaze. No one saw the man for whom she had silently bled since childhood. The mother sighed and took her son's hand. "You need to control yourself, my love. But your sister also needs to stop seeing evil in everything." Helena felt her heart clench. It wasn't just a lack of support, it was betrayal. The entire family was willing to sweep the aggression under the rug in the name of domestic peace.
"I lost the entire manuscript, Mom. He destroyed everything," she tried to argue, but her father interrupted. "A file? Just rewrite it. You've always been so sensitive, Helena."
The sentence was the final straw. For the first time, she didn't cry. She just stood up, took a deep breath, and said, "You'll regret laughing at this." He left his parents' house with trembling hands but a firm gaze. The pain that had always silenced her had now become fuel. Eduardo could have destroyed the laptop, but he couldn't erase what was recorded inside it, nor what was saved in the old backups he kept secret. And without them imagining it, the silent writer was already planning her counterattack. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, Helena felt exhausted. The tears had already dried, and in their place, only emptiness remained. The destroyed laptop lay on the table like a cruel reminder of what had been lost, but the silence, which had previously suffocated her, now had another sound, the sound of decision. She picked up the phone and called the only person she knew would believe her, Sofia Mendez. Sofia was her childhood friend and now a determined lawyer. Hearing what had happened, her voice hardened. "Helena, you won't let this go. He didn't just destroy an object. He destroyed part of your work. That's a crime." Helena hesitated, but Sofia insisted. "If he did it once, he'll do it again. It's time to put a stop to it." The next day, they went together to a repair shop, trying to recover the files from the laptop. The technician looked at them with pity. "The disk is damaged, but perhaps we can extract something." Helena watched the man delicately handle the parts, as if trying to piece together her own shattered heart. A small hope was rekindled. Back at the apartment, Sophia helped her review old backups. In one of the folders, they found emails, drafts, and documents dating back years before Eduardo's publications. Helena's eyes widened. "My God, he really used all of this." Sophia looked at her and replied, "This evidence is worth more than any trophy." That night, Helena wrote a sentence on a piece of paper and stuck it to the wall. "Justice begins when silence ends." It was a reminder of what was to come. For decades, she had been the shadow, but now, for the first time, the shadows would reveal the light, and the imposter would have to face the truth he had always feared. The rain pattered against the window as Helena reviewed old folders on her backup computer. Each file opened was a memory of the past, a line written by a version of herself who still believed in brotherly love. Tales 2011, Project Shadows, Drafts Edition 2, forgotten titles that now became evidence. Inside one of them, she found entire passages that Eduardo had copied word for word. Her blood ran cold. She no longer needed suspicions, she had proof.
Beside her, Sophia typed rapidly, cataloging the documents. "These dates predate the publications. This is pure gold." Helena looked at the screen and saw her own reflection in the open windows. It was like staring into a broken mirror. Each file showed a version of herself that had been stolen. Suddenly, she found an old email, sent to Eduardo more than 10 years ago. In the body of the message, she asked for his opinion on a short story called The Last Autumn. Months later, that same title appeared in her brother's first book. Helena took a deep breath, her heart racing. It was the perfect connecting thread. "You have more than enough evidence to start a lawsuit," Sophia said firmly. "But you need to decide if you really want to. You'll turn your family against you." Helena fell silent. For a moment, she considered giving up. But then she remembered her mother's mocking laughter, her father's indifference, the trophy she proudly held up. "I lost my family a long time ago, Sophia. I just hadn't realized it." At that moment, she saved all the files to a flash drive, labeling it with one word: true. It was small, metallic, discreet, but inside it lay the entire story that no one wanted to hear. And this time, she would no longer let silence win. The following weeks were spent preparing and strategizing. Sophia filed the lawsuit, basing her claim on copyright infringement, plagiarism, and misuse of creative material. The case was registered, and the name Eduardo Duarte officially appeared as a defendant for the first time. Helena read the document and felt a strange mixture of fear and relief. It was like pulling out a thorn that had been embedded in her soul for years. When the news leaked to the press, the family's reaction was explosive. Her mother called, shouting into the phone, "Have you gone mad? Do you want to destroy your own brother?" Helena calmly replied, "He destroyed me first." On the other end, the silence was deafening. Her father hung up without saying anything. The blood tie now was just a rope she would need to cut. Eduardo tried to contact her, sending furious messages. "You'll regret this. No one will believe you." She read and deleted them all. For the first time, she didn't react. She would let the evidence speak for itself. The courtroom would be the stage, and the truth, the text he never managed to write. Meanwhile, Sophia gathered witnesses, editors, proofreaders, and even Helena's college classmates who remembered texts she had written years before. Each testimony was a new stitch in a fabric that had long been torn. "You are not alone," Sophia said, handing her a copy of the printed proofs. Now the ghost has a face. The night before the first hearing, Helena sat in front of the mirror and observed her own reflection. For the first time, she didn't see her brother's shadow. She saw a woman, a writer, a survivor. She picked up a pen, opened a new file, and wrote the first sentence of what would be her next book. The truth is the only text that cannot be plagiarized.
The courtroom was packed. Journalists, curious onlookers, and even literary critics wanted to witness the scandal that was shaking the cultural scene. Helena entered, her body tense, her gaze fixed, and the folder of evidence clutched to her chest. On the other side of the room, Eduardo smiled, the same rehearsed smile from magazine covers, now used as armor. When their eyes met, she felt the weight of years condensed into a single instant. Sophia walked beside her, like a sentinel. Breathe. Today it's not him who speaks, it's the facts. Helena nodded and sat down. The judge announced the start of the hearing, and the first witnesses were called. The editor of a major literary house was the first. I've known Helena Duarte's work for over 10 years. She's been sending me texts since college. Her style is unique, and many of Eduardo's texts are almost verbatim copies. Eduardo, in his defense, laughed disdainfully. Creative coincidence, Your Honor. We're twins. We grew up together. It's natural that our ideas resemble each other. The audience murmured. Helena remained silent, but her hands gripped the pen tightly. She knew it was still early. The blow would come when the digital evidence was presented. During the break, she went outside for some fresh air. In the hallway, she ran into her mother. Helena, stop this, please. You're going to destroy your family, she said, crying. I'm not destroying anything, Mom. I'm just rebuilding what he broke. Her mother looked away, unable to face her daughter, who for the first time wasn't asking for forgiveness. Upon returning to the room, Helena noticed something different. The silence surrounding her was no longer one of submission, but of expectation. For the first time, people wanted to hear what she had to say. And when the judge asked her to tell her side of the story, Helena stood up, looked at everyone, and said, "He didn't just steal my texts, he stole who I was." Eduardo climbed onto the witness stand with the confidence of someone who believes himself untouchable. His impeccable suit, his neatly styled hair, his firm voice, everything about him exuded control. My sister has always been envious of my success. She writes well, but she never could stand the fact that I was recognized first. His parents, seated in the audience, nodded in agreement, reinforcing the theatricality. Helena listened to everything in silence. Each lie sounded like a familiar echo repeated for years. She would send me texts to review, and then she started saying I stole them. It's absurd. His lawyer tried to portray Helena as an unstable, obsessed, and frustrated woman. The cameras recorded everything, and Sophia's cold expression, barely blinking, waiting for the moment to strike back.
When it was the mother's turn to testify, the atmosphere changed. My son has always been talented, and Helena, she has always been more reserved, more emotional. Sometimes I imagine things. Helena felt breathless. Seeing her mother repeat the same speech before the judge was like reliving her childhood, only now the whole world was watching. Sophia asked for the floor. Your Honor, Helena Duarte's defense requests the presentation of new evidence. The courtroom screen lit up, displaying emails, drafts, and metadata from the original files. Dates, versions, and comparisons appeared side by side. The same text, with the same comma, written years earlier by Helena and later published by Eduardo. The courtroom fell silent. The judge raised his eyebrows. Eduardo tried to speak, but his voice failed him. "A creative coincidence?" the judge murmured ironically. The audience began to whisper, and the camera flashes went off like thunder. Helena, motionless, looked at her brother, the man who had made her doubt herself, and for the first time, he seemed small. The cold light from the screen reflected on Eduardo's face as the digital expert calmly explained, "These files were originally created on Miss Helena Duarte's computer between 2009 and 2016. The metadata shows the exact creation date and the changes made over the years. The versions published by the defendant were created later, with the same content." Each word was a precise, technical, and devastating blow. Helena watched in silence, feeling her heart pound like a distant drum. It was strange. After so many years of pain, there was no pleasure in the presentation, only a serene emptiness. The courtroom leafed through the reports, while the audience whispered, impressed. Eduardo's defense tried to react, but each argument dissolved before the precision of the data. When the images of the emails were projected, the silence turned to disbelief. There were the messages Helena had sent to her brother, asking for his opinion on texts that months later became his hits. Eduardo's lawyer tried to argue that these were fraternal collaborations, but the judge interrupted him. Collaboration doesn't usually involve verbatim copying. Eduardo began to sweat. The confidence in his gaze gave way to a contained despair. The audience, which had previously admired him, now looked at him with disdain. Helena noticed her mother, motionless in the back seat, her hands clasped together. Her father stared at the floor, ashamed. The empire of lies was beginning to crumble before everyone's eyes. When the judge suspended the session, Helena left without looking back. In the hallway, Sophia caught up with her and whispered, "Today was the beginning of the end." Helena took a deep breath, leaned against the wall, and closed her eyes. For the first time, she felt the weight of freedom, and it was light. In the days that followed, the case exploded in the press. Headlines splashed across the scandal. "The genius of plagiarism. Eduardo Duarte is accused of stealing works from his own sister." TV programs replayed excerpts from the trial, and on social media, Helena's name was finally being mentioned, not as a shadow, but as the author. As public opinion shifted, Helena withdrew from public life. She avoided interviews, turned off her cell phone, and spent her afternoons writing. She wasn't seeking fame, just peace. Sophia appeared every day, bringing updates. Eduardo's contracts canceled, publishers rescinding agreements, awards being revoked. The man who once lived on applause was now a symbol of shame.
Even so, the victory had a bittersweet taste. At night, Helena would sit at the table and look at the empty chair that had once belonged to a brother at family dinners. She remembered the laughter, the condescending glances, and now she saw it all as a staged play. What hurt most wasn't what he had done, it was the fact that everyone had allowed it. One day, as she was leaving her house, she was approached by a reporter. "Helena, how do you feel seeing the whole country finally recognizing your talent?" She smiled slightly. "I didn't want them to applaud me. I just wanted them to listen to me." The phrase went viral in minutes, being cited as a symbol of resistance and truth. As the trial drew to a close, Helena understood something simple yet powerful. Justice doesn't bring back lost time, but it restores one's name. And for a writer, that's the same as giving back life. The courtroom was packed on the final day. Cameras, flashes, and murmurs filled the air, but Helena only listened to her own heart. Before her, the judge read the closing arguments, the evidence piled in thick folders on the table. Eduardo kept his gaze fixed on some point in the void, his tired expression reflecting someone who knew the end was near. Silence fell as the judge began. Based on the evidence presented, this court recognizes Ms. Helena Duarte as the legitimate author of the works in question. Plagiarism, as well as the manipulation of intellectual material by the defendant, is proven. The voice sounded like a divine verdict, dry and irreversible. Helena took a deep breath. She didn't smile, she didn't cry. She simply closed her eyes and felt the weight of the past finally lift from her shoulders. Eduardo, upon hearing the judge mention the penalties, compensation, loss of copyright, and public retraction, clenched his fist. For a moment, he tried to look at her, but looked away. From the back seat, the mother began to cry softly. The father remained motionless, his expression defeated. What had once been pride was now becoming shame. And Helena, with a mixture of pain and compassion, realized that she too was freeing herself from them, from the need to prove something, from the desperate search for love where there was only blindness. When she left the courthouse, flashes surrounded her, but she passed them all without saying a word. Outside, the sky was clear, and a light breeze touched her face. Sophia approached and said, "It's over." Helena replied, "No. Now it has begun." And for the first time, her smile hid nothing. It was real, whole, and only hers. Months had passed since the trial. The country forgot the scandal as it forgets everything. But for Helena, the silence that followed was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. She returned to writing, slowly, without haste, with the windows open and the sun streaming into the room. Each word seemed to breathe life.
One day, he decided to visit his parents. The house, once filled with laughter and photographs of the prodigy son, was now silent. The golden trophy had disappeared from the shelf. When he entered, his mother rose from the sofa, hesitant. "Helena," she began, but her voice faltered. His father remained seated, staring at the floor. Helena walked to the table and placed a new book on it. The title, in simple letters, The Sound of Silence, by Helena Duarte. "I didn't come to collect anything," she said calmly. "I just wanted to leave this here." The mother held the book with trembling hands, unable to tell if she felt regret or pride. Before leaving, Helena looked down the hallway where one day her childhood stories had been snatched from her hands to become a display case for her brother. This time, she felt no anger, only peace. "Take care, Mom." And she left, leaving the door ajar as one who closes a chapter with dignity. Outside, the wind carried the scent of distant rain. Helena smiled. The noise of the world seemed quieter now. For the first time, the silence didn't oppress her. It embraced her. It was the sound of truth, finally at peace with herself. The sun was rising lazily over the city when Helena opened the windows of her small new apartment. The smell of coffee mingled with the soft sound of pages being turned. On the table lay the newly printed copy of her book, The Sound of Silence. It rested beside a pen and a bouquet of lavender. She ran her fingers over the cover, feeling the embossed outline of her own name, Helena Duarte. For the first time, there were no pseudonyms, no fear,
no shadows. The previous weeks had been quiet. The noise of the scandal had subsided, but echoes still reached us in messages from anonymous readers. "Your story gave me courage," one of them said. Helena smiled at each new message, realizing that her pain was now transforming into a bridge, a way to heal other silenced voices. What was once a wound was now a tool. As she wrote the first paragraph of her new book, she thought of Eduardo, not with anger, but with a strange compassion. He had lost everything he had pretended to possess, and perhaps that was what he had always feared, being ordinary. Helena, on the other hand, had finally found peace in what he would never understand, the truth. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Sophia, with 2 cups of coffee and a tranquil smile. "Starting another book?" Helena laughed. "Actually, I'm starting another life." The two clinked their mugs, and for a moment everything seemed light. Later, Helena went out onto the balcony. The city pulsed below, indifferent yet alive. She took a deep breath, the wind ruffling her hair, and murmured to herself, "The words are mine now." And with that certainty, she returned to her desk, where the cursor blinked on the screen, no longer as a provocation, but as an invitation. In the first line, he wrote, "There is no greater justice than existing with one's own voice." And then she began to type, free, whole, and in control of every word. Helena fought to reclaim something that no one should lose, the right to be heard. And you, what would you do if your own voice were stolen? If this story touched you, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because here, every week, we bring you real and moving stories that prove one thing: the truth may take time, but it always wins.